I had been in a wheelchair since I was 17. By the time I turned 29, I thought I had seen every kind of reaction people could have. Pity, curiosity, awkward smiles. I learned how to live with all of it. What I didn't expect was to be hurt by my own sister. She was getting married, and the house buzzed with excitement. Wedding boards covered the walls, dresses, flowers, colors, everything had to be perfect. I supported her from the start. I listened when she talked for hours. I smiled and told her it would be beautiful. One afternoon, she asked me to talk privately. We sat in the living room. She looked nervous, but excited. Then she said it. She told me my wheelchair didn't fit the vintage aesthetic she was planning. At first, I thought I misheard her. She kept talking, explaining how the photos mattered and how the ceremony needed a certain look. Then she asked if I could find a way to avoid using my chair for the day. I stared at her. I told her that wasn't possible. I explained calmly that my chair wasn't an accessory. It was how I moved. It was part of my body. She smiled tightly and said, "We'll figure something out." That was when my stomach dropped. I tried to explain things slowly. I told her I couldn't just stand for a few hours. I couldn't push through it. My body didn't work that way. I reminded her I hadn't walked since I was a teenager. She nodded, but her eyes drifted away. She wasn't really listening. Then she suggested something worse. She said I could rent a decorative chair, something that would match the theme. She said I could just sit there for the ceremony and pictures and use my wheelchair later. I felt my face go hot. I told her I wasn't mobile. I couldn't transfer safely. I couldn't switch seats like it was nothing. She sighed like I was being difficult. She said, "I just don't want it to stand out." That sentence hurt more than anything else. My wheelchair had always stood out. I learned to accept that. I never thought my sister saw it as a problem to hide. I asked her if she really meant what she was saying. She avoided my eyes and said it was her wedding, and she had dreamed about it for years. I left the room shaking. That night, I stared at the ceiling and realized something painful. She wasn't asking for a favor. She was asking me to disappear. The next few days were tense. My sister avoided me, but I could feel the pressure building. When family came over, conversations stopped when I entered the room. People smiled too much. No one said anything directly. Then my mother pulled me aside. She told me my sister was stressed and that I should try to understand. She said weddings were emotional and that I didn't want to ruin such a big day. I asked her if she agreed with what my sister said. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she said maybe I could stay seated in the back. Maybe I didn't need to be in the main photos. Maybe I could step out during the ceremony. Step out. I reminded her I couldn't just move easily. I asked her why my comfort mattered less than decorations. She said I was taking things too personally. That hurt almost as much as my sister's words. I started to question myself. I wondered if I was being stubborn. I wondered if I should just stay quiet to keep the peace. But then I remembered all the times I learned to accept stares and whispers. I did that so others could feel comfortable. I wasn't willing to do that again. Not for my own family. A week later, my sister called a family meeting. I knew what it was about before I even entered the room. She talked about timelines, seating, and photos. Then she brought it up again. She said she needed everyone to cooperate so the wedding could look perfect. She looked straight at me. She said maybe I could attend only the reception, or arrive after the ceremony, or stay out of view during photos. Each suggestion felt like a small cut. I asked her one simple question. Do you want me there, or do you just want the idea of me? The room went quiet. She said she loved me, but this day wasn't about me. She said sacrifices were normal for family. I realized then that she didn't see my wheelchair as part of me. She saw it as a problem to manage. No one defended me. That silence told me everything. I went back to my room and locked the door. For the first time in years, I felt ashamed of my body again. But under that shame, something stronger began to grow. Anger and clarity. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to argue anymore. I wasn't going to beg to exist in someone else's picture-perfect world. I stopped explaining. I stopped defending myself. I started paying attention instead. I noticed how often my sister talked about appearances, how often she worried about photos more than people. I noticed how the family nodded along without thinking. I also noticed how quiet I became. They assumed silence meant agreement. They were wrong. I began preparing quietly. I looked at messages, invitations, and group chats. I saved conversations. I took notes about what was said and when. I didn't know exactly what I would do yet. I just knew I wouldn't let myself be erased. If my presence ruined the look, then maybe my absence would change something else. And for the first time since the wedding planning began, I felt calm. They thought this was about decorations. They had no idea what they had started. 2 days later, my sister sent me a link in our family group chat. It was a wedding rental site. She wrote, "Look at these, so cute and vintage." I clicked it, and my chest tightened. The chairs were wooden, delicate, and narrow. None of them had wheels. None of them had support straps. They were props. Then she messaged me privately. "If you can't stand, at least sit in one of these for photos. Your chair will be off to the side." Off to the side? Like a coat. I told her no again. I said I couldn't transfer safely and I wouldn't pretend my wheelchair wasn't part of me. She replied, "You're making this harder than it needs to be." That sentence made me laugh, but not in a funny way. It sounded like she was talking about a tablecloth, not my body. That night, my stepdad knocked on my door. He said my sister had been crying. He asked why I couldn't meet her halfway. I asked him what halfway looked like. He shrugged and said, "Just don't be so visible." I sat there stunned. I had spent years learning to accept being seen. Now my own family wanted me to disappear. I didn't argue. I just wrote it all down. The next twist came in a dress code message. My sister announced that everyone in the wedding party would wear soft, neutral colors for the photos. Then she tagged me and wrote, "And please wear long pants so the chair doesn't look so modern." Modern, like my wheelchair was a bad style choice. I stared at the message until my eyes burned. I knew what she really meant. She wanted to hide the chair as much as possible. She wanted me covered, pushed back, blended into the background. My mom called me later and said, "Just wear what she wants. It's one day." I asked her, "If it's just one day, why is my chair such a big deal?" She sighed and said I was focusing on the wrong thing. That night, I opened old photo albums. I found pictures of my sister and me as kids. I remembered her holding my hand after my accident. I remembered her telling me I was still me. I wondered where that sister went. The next morning, I received a message from the wedding planner. She asked if I would be attending the ceremony or joining later. I didn't understand at first. Then I realized my sister had already started changing plans without telling me. I felt sick. I called the planner and asked what she meant. She sounded nervous, like she had been told to keep something quiet. She said my sister had asked about alternate entrance options, so I wouldn't be in the main walkway. I asked, "So she wants me to enter from somewhere else?" The planner hesitated and said, "She said it would be smoother." Smoother for who? I thanked her and ended the call. My hands were shaking. I had expected rude comments. I hadn't expected actual planning to hide me. Later that day, my sister came into my room without knocking. She held her phone like a shield. She said, "The aisle is narrow. It'll be easier if you come in from the side." I looked at her and said, "The aisle isn't too narrow. You're just embarrassed." Her face changed. She snapped, "I'm not embarrassed. I'm trying to make it perfect." I asked her if I was part of perfect. She went quiet, then said, "Don't do this to me." Like I was attacking her. I didn't yell. I didn't insult her. I just said, "I'm not a decoration you can move." She left fast and I heard her crying in the hallway. Then my phone buzzed. My aunt texted me, "Please be nice, your sister's under a lot of stress." No one asked if I was okay. That weekend, the family met for a venue walkthrough. I showed up anyway. I wanted to see what they were planning. I rolled through the entrance and felt every eye turn toward me. My sister's smile was bright, but her jaw was tight. The planner walked us around. She pointed out the ceremony aisle, the photo spots, the seating. Everything looked normal until we reached the front row. My sister pointed to a small gap on the far end and said, "He can go there. There. Not beside family. Not centered like everyone else. Just tucked away." Then she showed the planner a sketch. I saw it clearly. The diagram had everyone's names written in neat letters. Mine wasn't there. Instead it said, "Wheelchair placement." Placement. I felt like air left my lungs. I asked her, right there in front of everyone, "Why am I not listed by name?" Her cheeks went red. She said, "It's just easier for the layout." I looked around the group. People shifted uncomfortably. No one spoke. That silence hit me like a slap. On the ride home, my mom whispered, "Please don't embarrass her." I stared out the window. They kept saying embarrass, but the only one being shamed was me. That night, I made a new plan. I stopped thinking about how to convince them. I started thinking about how to protect myself. I called a close friend, Mason, who had known me since before the accident. I told him everything, including the diagram. He went quiet, then said, "That's cruel." I told him I didn't want drama, I just wanted dignity. He said, "Then let's make sure you have it." The next day, he helped me contact the venue directly. We asked about accessibility, aisle width, ramps, and entrances. The venue manager sounded confused. She said the space was fully accessible and the aisle was wide. She added something that shocked me. "Your sister asked if we could cover the wheels," she said, "or put a skirt around the chair. Like a table." I thanked her politely and ended the call. My hands were cold, so it wasn't about space. It was never about space. It was about hiding me. That night, I wrote a message to my sister. I didn't send it yet. I saved it and waited. I needed the right moment, because I wasn't going to scream. I was going to let the truth land where it hurt. And I was going to walk into that wedding exactly as I was. The week before the wedding felt heavier than the months before it. Everyone moved faster, spoke louder, and smiled wider. I stayed quiet. I watched. I listened. My sister didn't bring up the wheelchair again, but her silence was loud. Instead, instructions came through other people. My mom reminded me about colors. My aunt asked where I planned to sit. The planner emailed asking me to confirm my arrival path. I realized something important. My sister didn't want to fight me anymore. She wanted to work around me. That hurt more than arguing. One evening, I overheard her talking on the phone. She laughed and said, "It'll be fine. He just needs to cooperate." Cooperate? Like I was a problem employee, not her brother. That night, I reread the message I had written but never sent. It was calm, clear, honest. I didn't accuse. I explained how it felt to be hidden. I decided to wait. I wanted the truth to be impossible to ignore. 2 days before the wedding, family started arriving from out of town. Hugs filled the house. People told my sister how beautiful everything looked. I sat nearby, smiling politely. Then my cousin pulled me aside. She asked quietly, "Is it true they don't want your chair in the pictures?" I nodded. Her face fell. She said, "That's messed up." Word spread faster than I expected. Not loudly, but in whispers. People noticed the chair covers. They noticed the odd seating plan. They noticed how I was always guided to the edge. That afternoon, my sister confronted me. She asked why I was turning people against her. I told her I hadn't said anything untrue. She said I was ruining her wedding. I said, "I just want to exist." She walked away shaking. For the first time, the pressure wasn't only on me. The rehearsal was tense. Everyone practiced walking, standing, smiling. I rolled to my place at the front. My sister stopped the rehearsal and whispered to the planner. The planner approached me and asked if I could move slightly back. I asked why. She looked uncomfortable and said, "For balance." I looked at my sister. She didn't meet my eyes. That was the moment something snapped inside me. Not anger, resolve. I said calmly, "No." The room went quiet. I explained in a steady voice that the aisle was accessible, the space was fine, and I would not be hidden. I said I would attend as myself or not at all. My sister burst into tears. My mom rushed to her side. People stared, but no one argued with me. For the first time, I wasn't apologizing. That night, my mom came into my room. She asked why I couldn't just let this go. I asked her why my body was the thing that needed changing. She didn't answer. She said my sister felt judged. I said I felt erased. Silence filled the room. She left without another word. I slept deeply. The morning of the wedding arrived. I got dressed slowly. I looked at myself in the mirror. The wheelchair was there, like always. Solid. Honest. I rolled toward the venue, knowing one thing for sure. I wasn't hiding. The venue buzzed with activity when I arrived. Flowers lined the path. Soft music played in the background. People smiled and hurried around, fixing small details. Everything looked just like my sister wanted, carefully planned and picture perfect. As I rolled inside, conversations paused for a moment. Some people smiled warmly, others looked unsure, like they didn't know where to look. I kept my head up and moved forward. The aisle was wide, wider than enough. The planner walked over and whispered that everything was ready. She pointed to my spot near the front, exactly where it should be. No side entrance, no hidden corner. I noticed my sister watching from across the room. Her smile looked tight. She whispered to my mom, who glanced at me and then away. I felt calm. For once, I wasn't waiting to be moved. The ceremony began. Guests stood. Music swelled. My sister walked down the aisle, glowing and nervous. Applause filled the room. I watched quietly, feeling both proud and distant. When the officiant spoke about family and love, something shifted. I noticed people glancing at me, then back at my sister. The contrast felt heavy. During the vows, my sister's voice shook. She spoke about honesty, acceptance, and loving people as they are. I didn't look away. I saw a few guests exchange looks. Some faces tightened with understanding. The words hung in the air. After the ceremony, photos began. The photographer gathered family members and arranged everyone carefully. When it was time for immediate family, I rolled into place beside my sister. The photographer smiled and said, "Perfect." No one moved me. No one questioned it. I noticed my sister hesitate, then force a smile. The camera clicked. Later, guests congratulated me quietly. One aunt squeezed my shoulder and whispered, "I'm glad you stayed." Another guest said, "You belong here." Each comment felt like a quiet apology. At the reception, the speeches began. My sister thanked everyone for their support. She spoke about how much family meant to her. Then my dad stood up. He spoke calmly and proudly. He talked about strength, resilience, and loving people fully. He thanked everyone for welcoming all of us. He looked at me and said, "I'm proud of my son." The room went silent, then applause filled the space. My sister looked down. As the night went on, something changed. Guests laughed and danced, but the perfect shine had cracked. People saw what had been hidden. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. The truth stood beside me the entire night. After the speeches ended, I rolled outside for air. The night felt cool and calm. I could still hear music and laughter inside, but out there, everything felt honest. I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt clear. A few guests came outside and stood with me. No one talked about the chair. No one made it awkward. They talked about the ceremony, the weather, the future. I realized something important. The problem was never my wheelchair. The problem was fear of how it looked. When I went back inside, my sister avoided my eyes. She laughed with guests, but her smile looked tired now. I didn't chase her. I didn't need anything from her. I danced in my own way. I laughed. I stayed until I felt ready to leave. When I finally said goodbye, people hugged me tightly. One whispered, "Thank you for being here." That sentence stayed with me. The next morning, my phone buzzed with messages. Some were simple thank yous. Some were apologies. A few said they didn't realize how much pressure I had been under. I didn't respond to all of them. I didn't need to. Later that day, my sister texted me. She said the wedding went well, but things didn't feel how she imagined. She said people kept bringing up the wheelchair issue. She didn't apologize. I replied calmly. I said I hoped she was happy and that I loved her. That was the truth. But love didn't mean silence anymore. A week passed, life returned to normal, or at least, a new normal. I met a friend for coffee and told him everything. He shook his head and said, "You handled that with more grace than most people could." That word stayed with me. Grace. I realized something. I didn't win by embarrassing anyone. I didn't win by yelling or exposing private messages. I won by refusing to disappear. I showed up as myself, and people noticed. One evening, my sister came to see me alone. She looked tired. She said she didn't mean to hurt me. She said the pressure got to her. I listened. Then I told her how it felt to be hidden, how it felt to be treated like a problem instead of a person. She cried quietly. I didn't feel satisfied. I felt finished. Looking back, I understand it clearly now. They thought the wheelchair would ruin the look. Instead, it revealed the truth. I didn't need revenge built on anger. I chose dignity. I chose visibility. And that choice changed everything.